Welcome to Taxi's Passenger Profile for June of 2021, Mr. Casey Hurowitz. And there he is, ladies and gentlemen. Casey, how are you? Good to see you, buddy.
I'm good.
I want to let everybody know, Casey's been a member forever. I'm guessing 15-ish years or something.
It's probably closer to 20.
Wow. He's been around the block and he participates in a lot of aspects of taxi. And I thought he would be an interesting passenger profile this month because not only is he like in a large network of people and knows the drill about the company really well, has learned a lot about the industry over the years, but he's also a rare bird in that he really doesn't give a damn about how much money he makes getting his music placed in film and TV, which does make him rare. A lot of people, most people, I would venture to say, do it because they would like to build it into a full-time career and a big stream of income. Casey has a great paying day job. I think he makes like 1.5 million a year or something.
Yeah, just something like that.
Right. Maybe it's 1.47. I'm kidding, of course. And, he for Casey, it's all about, whoops, let me mute that. It's all about him feeling that incredible sense of satisfaction when his stuff shows up in a TV show, film, what have you. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. But first, I want to begin at the beginning by asking you, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Brooklyn, New York.
I couldn't tell.
Something that people pick up in my voice often.
No kidding.
I don't hear it as much sometimes when I'm really tired. It comes out.
I hear
it.
Did you grow up in a musical family at all? Any parents or grandparents that played stuff, or brothers, sisters, any of that?
Zippo. I mean, nothing. My parents had no musical education or anything. My brother took like clarinet lessons as a young person, but nothing like that at all.
So I think you and I are pretty close in age, which I won't disclose for both of our sakes, but I think we grew up with the same era of music, listening to the same stuff on primarily AM radio in the beginning. And then by the time we were in high school, it started migrating over to FM, really good FM. Were you about... I was 9 years old when the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show and found that to be a life-changing moment. Did you have any sort of similar experience, or were you a Rolling Stones fan?
Let's see, I'm a similar age to you. I mean, I'm 66, so I would have been Beatles 1964. What would I have been? I would have been 10, so about the same. What's interesting is I didn't really get into it then. It was when the Monkees got on TV.
Oh, wow.
But I got into music when the Monkees hit TV and then went back and really got into the Beatles and everything else.
I love the Monkees TV show. It was great. They were so completely idiotic that they were wonderful.
They were great. And you know what? The music was great. The songs were written by top-notch songwriters. It just is really good stuff. They got trashed a lot for no reason.
You're absolutely right. In retrospect, even at the time, I've never stopped loving the Monkees, but, Daydream Believer, Last Train to Clarksville, they were bona fide hits. They were well-crafted songs. The vocals were great. The players, I'm guessing it wasn't the actual Monkees playing in the studios, probably session guys.
In the early days, it was mostly the Wrecking Crew.
Right.
Then they went on and started playing their own.
Well, that's cool. So were you ever like in a garage band? I found it 12 years old. I was in the Benjamin Franklin Lightning Rod Society, and I'm wondering if you had a similar experience with other kids in your neighborhood?
No, never a band other than my brother and I both picked up acoustic guitars at the same time and played a lot together. To this day, I've barely ever picked up an electric guitar.
Wow.
And I don't like playing them sometimes because I hear my mistakes too much. But no, nothing even remotely close to a band. My brother and I playing together is about it.
Whose music did you play? Were you like covering Joni Mitchell, Bob Dylan, like folky stuff back then?
Yeah, a little later. First, it started, obviously, we learned how to play the Monkees, and then we got into everything of the 60s, the Beatles, the Stones, the Moody Blues, the Doors, then a lot of Simon and Garfunkel, some Dylan, pretty much everything 60s, rock and folk rock.
This interview is about you, not me, but I've got to interject something just because we've known each other for many years. I've never told you this before, but I used to be friends with, before he passed away, a guy named Sal DeTroia that actually played acoustic guitar on The Boxer and several other Simon and Garfunkel songs.
Wow.
I worked with him on the Melanie Ballroom Streets record, and
Yeah.
boy, what a guitar player he was. Anyway,
Just an aside, you've mentioned Melanie. I'm probably one of the only men in the world that could cite Melanie as a huge songwriting influence.
wow.
I loved Melody. I saw her live many, many times, and I just found something incredibly sincere and expressive in the way she wrote her lyrics and sang.
Yep.
So she actually had an effect on me.
It's funny. At the time, some people, even though she was the opening act at Woodstock, which I think, build gives her a lot of credibility. I got a brand new pair of roller skates, pegged her, which was her big hit, pegged her as kind of cutesy, bubblegummy. And actually, the song was very cutting edge, and most people didn't understand it was about a young girl losing her virginity. They literally thought it was about
Yeah.
roller skating.
But I
So,
don't think she should have ever done that song because it took away from people knowing what she was really all about.
yeah,
And her less known songs were so like Tuning My Guitars, a couple others. They just are amazing to me.
I felt honored and privileged to work with her. We all of us working on that record, and we did a follow up record which never got released. But yeah, we were a little family for a few months at a time in the studio, and I had tremendous respect for her. Still keep in touch with her every now and
Well, you
then.
could tell her one day that you know a guy who was incredibly influenced by her songwriting.
I will. I've actually played some of her stuff on Taxi TV, and people are blown away because she was kind of, for lack of a better way to describe her, she had kind of the coolness and depth of Joni Mitchell with the balls of Janis Joplin kind of all rolled
Right.
into one package. And there's
Yeah.
really never been anybody else quite like her. And she still goes out and performs. And she's got to be, I'm guessing, in mid 70s now.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, that's cool. I didn't know that about you. So, yay on that. At what point did you start writing songs?
Very early on, I probably was 16, I'm guessing. It's funny, my brother and I played a lot of the radio songs, the Stones, the Beatles, and everything else. And somehow I just transitioned to, probably because I was the typical unhappy teenager with lots of problems and lots of angst, girls that didn't like me, or girls that broke up with me, or
There's a,
hated my parents. I had all the standard,
yeah,
teenage feeling,
yeah.
and I would start writing these songs. And more over the years, I became less interested in playing commercial songs and I like just making things up. So I
Yeah.
started when I was probably about 16. And interestingly enough, I still over the past years have gone back to material I put together back then and repurposed them. Sometimes it's the chord pattern, the melody. Sometimes it becomes an instrumental cue and it ends up on TV.
Do you look at your lyrics back then? And I'm sure that you understand and reflect on how you felt, the feelings that caused you to write the lyrics about mom and dad, you don't understand me, or the girl down the block that I've always had a crush on and, could care less if I live or die. But do you look back at those now beyond how you felt at the time and go, wow, there's actually something in those lyrics that could work for today, or do you totally need to eradicate them?
Generally, no, I think I was they were, and I found this out when I first got into trying to market my own songs, how too personal they were. And then,
Mm,
yeah, I'll still read those lyrics and I know what I felt. But, in songwriting, it's not, as they always say, it's not, was it not what you want to say, it's what other people want to hear. So I
right.
also sometimes wrote rather cryptic, thinking, well, if it was like the Beatles did, where you had no freaking idea what they were talking about, that was a good thing.
Yeah.
And
Which it was for the Beatles, but they were the Beatles.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things I did, thinking that people would be ripping apart my albums one day to figure out what my lyrics were really about. Um, that failed miserably.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
It's funny because there was a song that's been used on TV. Mika Auto Auctions on NBC Sports keeps using a cue of mine, and it was a song that I wrote like that. That terrible lyrics. I mean, just dreadful lyrics in terms of marketability. But I took the backing track from it. I put in some libraries, and just yesterday I found that I had a 4-minute placement from that.
Wow.
Yeah.
4 minutes might be a world record. That's really long. And just so
Yeah,
we
I never
don't
did.
just so we don't mislead people, most placements are
Yeah.
like 5 seconds, 21 seconds,
Yeah,
4 minutes.
30s. I get some 60s, I get some 15s, but no. And that had to be playing it twice because it's probably only 2 minutes long.
What network was it on? Was it on a broadcast net or?
It's NBC Sports and also Versus Media on
Right.
cable. I don't. It's not the hugest paying thing, but when you get a bunch of them, I've got like 20 cues that ended up on there, and this one's 4 minutes, so I assume it's going to pay well.
Nice. Good job on that. Um, let's get into something that's a little closer to present day, sort of. You joined Taxi in the early 2000s. How long did you know about us before you joined?
Not very long. I happened to be working. I had to, I took all these songs that I had written my whole life, the better ones, the quote better ones, and I got a bunch of songs recorded in a demo studio, not till the year 2000 or 2001. And those songs have been written anywhere from the 70s through the 80s. But I had some that I really liked. And I finally, found the studio nearby, got them all recorded, and I was trying to figure out how to market them. And I happened to be working next door to a very well known music attorney in the same building who I got to say hello to a few times. And he was the one who told me about Taxi. I never
Oh,
heard you.
wow.
And it's Taxi and some other song sheet. I forgot what it was, some tip sheet. So I joined. And I will tell you, I was like a lot of your new members. I got
Mm.
rejections and thought your screeners were all full of poop and got frustrated. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. Everybody thinks their songs are great. They're going to light the world on fire. And then you find out reality. And then I dropped out for a while after that, but I came back. So I probably was there for a year or two around 01, 02, I'm guessing. Came back around 2004 or 5. I just don't remember exactly when.
Was your goal when you first joined to get your stuff cut by artists on major
Oh, of
labels?
course.
Okay, so yeah, we probably by the time you joined, we were fairly well ensconced in the film and TV market. But I would say at that time in the early 2000s, most of our members were still pursuing big cuts or record deals.
Right.
So I guess you were in the majority there. But you're kind of a rare bird, and I find this to be funny because I know that you do tech related stuff for your day gig, and you're certainly not inept on the tech side of things, and you're certainly not unintelligent. Yet you choose to not engineer or produce your own stuff other than rough demos, from what I understand. Instead, you hire outside producers, or else you work with producers or studios that you will pay to build your tracks for you and finish your songs. You don't sing other than scratch vocals, I'm guessing, on your demos. And
Which is a good thing, by the way.
yeah, I was going to thank you on behalf of all of us who've never heard you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I only can kid him because I've known him for so long. Don't be offended, people.
No, but one day I was going to say I probably should send you a before and after of my rough demo
Ooh,
and juice demo so members can hear what can happen when you take a rough idea and give it to the right person.
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I would love to do that. So you hire outside producers and or work with collaborators that fully realize your songs and bring them to fruition. Let's talk about the process of using the outside producers first, because it's it can be daunting to hand somebody something that's so close to your heart and say, here you go, make it great. And by the way, can you do it's like hiring an interior decorator, but saying, okay, make the curtains blue and the table's got to be dark wood. So, well, then why did you hire me? So, what's your process like when you work with them? Do you just hand it to them and say, bring me back your vision and I'll tell you if there's something I don't like? Or do you give them, well, these are the things I'm looking for and expect them to deliver on your vision? How does it work?
Yeah, it's usually I give the rough and some reference tracks, reference artists,
Hmm.
which is something I started a lot when I got into the film and TV thing. I give a lot of freedom to whoever's doing the production. But yeah, definitely some idea. Do I want it rock? Do I want a singer songwriter? Do I want it to sound like this person or that person? And I rarely get back something that sounds that close to what I started with. I mean, obviously the song is there. And most of the time I hate what I get when I first get it. It's a funny phenomenon, the demo love thing. Um, usually when I first hear it, I'm like, oh my God, this sucks. And then I listen to it for a day or two and I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. I would say you're probably not alone in that. Look, we all get comfortable and familiar with things the way they are. And even if somebody presents it in an awesome new way, it's still different. It takes a little. We just redid some granite in our kitchen, and for a week I had to hide the fact from my wife that I really didn't like the color that she picked, and I consented to. And
Yeah,
now it's grown on me, and I can't imagine it any other way. So there you
it's
go.
exactly like that. I even tell my co-writers jokingly, any email back I give you in the first 2 days, you could take with a big grain of salt.
That's cool. At least you give them fair warning. That's big of you. Uh, So how do you pick? Again, going with the hired gun producer engineer, combo versus the collaborators. How do you pick somebody you're going to pay to do your work? Do you hear other work that they've done? Are they recommended by friends? Do you know them from the taxi community? How do you find them, and what causes you to select them?
Yeah, I think it's almost exclusively now that I would say 90% the taxi community. Early on, when I started, I had a local studio I work with. I've tried some studios for hire type things, but the everything's been coming from the taxi community because the way I found people was on the forum. I would look at who's successful and who's successful in film and TV. So early on, I was, like Paul Otten was on the forum a lot, Keith LeBrand, people like that. And I'm looking at what they're doing. I'm like, well, what they had magically is they understand the film TV game and the a la sound and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I didn't find studios, and there are some, I'm sure, that were good at doing anything except kind of cut it the cookie cutter way that they're used to cutting demos.
Right.
And where people like I've met through the taxi community, and there's like a long list of people like that now, they understand everything. When I say an a la reference, they know exactly why we're doing it like that, because we want to, get it into a library and be able to identify who it sounds like and blah, blah, blah.
Uh, it is quite amazing. Around the office, we pinch ourselves. I know a lot of the library owners, a lot of music soups have become friends of mine over the years. We're all quite astonished at how advanced the whole taxi community seems to have gotten over the years. So I would imagine that it does present almost a conundrum for you, because it used to be there were 3 or 4 people that really stood out. Then there were 6 or 10, and now there are just so many. How do you pick amongst them?
That's a good question. I haven't picked that many new people in a long time. I think, well, David Zimmer's somebody I started working with more recently, meeting on, I think we met on social media. And although he's a taxi member, and I'm trying to think, Marcus, I know from the rallies. But I haven't picked that many new people because I've got, you start to get a list of people that you just go to.
Right.
If I picked again, I would probably seek out people who've been able to get their songs in libraries that understand the film TV game.
And
Um,
how do you know pricing wise, how did you ask people, well, what would you charge me to do the song? And they base their fee on the type of instrumentation. Obviously, doing a big orchestral piece would be a lot more time consuming than doing, an acoustic guitar driven 4-piece band thing. So did you ask them, what would you charge me to do this? Or did you say, I've got X budget, could you do it for that? How did that conversation go?
it's usually I ask them, and I do rock and singer songwriter, maybe some pop, but mostly rock and singer songwriter. So the instrumentation is pretty much a given.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people I work with are flat fee for song. The difference would be, let's say I'm using a guy like Paul Otten, who's male. If we need a female vocalist, because the song lends itself to a woman, I'll have to go out and also do a work for hire and pay more money to get a vocalist, which I've
Um,
done many times.
can you give me a range of what you typically spend on completing a song?
Yeah, I mean, generally can vary. I'm going to say $450 to $600. 500 is a good sweet spot. Again, it could depend. I mean, you may have somebody who's going to sing the song, therefore they don't have to charge you as much because we don't have to bring in somebody. what if I, or do I want a violin solo guy, or a woman? That would cost me a little more. But I'd say that's about the range.
That it seems fair and reasonable, and there are a lot of demo studios out there. I mean, you and I've probably had this discussion over the years. There's some incredibly good demo studios in Nashville, where you're getting A-list players that work on hit records from 10 to 12, and then from 2 to 4 they're working on demos for
Right, right.
unknown people who aren't on a major label. You get the same quality of playing and kind of musical contributions by them, and those demos range 500 to 1,000.
I
But
think you're more. I think you'd pay like 1,000 for a lot of those.
yeah, I mean, I've heard some stuff done for 500, but it was probably a friends and family price, come to
Yeah,
think of it.
I was working with one recently that was really good, and they were 525 for a full demo, and they gave work for hire. They didn't use any union musicians, so it was all good for film TV. I do want to caution people while I'm here. For film TV, if you go to a Nashville studio and they're using union players playing off the card, you're really going in a bad direction because you may not be able to use those tracks in film TV. Some libraries are definitely not going to take them.
Right. Even
And the
though,
work for hire, you got to be real careful. Are you getting the individual musicians to sign?
right,
Admit that I'm the guy who played on that and sign off.
right, versus a company that provides people working for hire that says we indemnify you and say that yes, all of our guys are work for hire. They could still come out of the woodwork individually.
Yeah.
And also your point is very well taken about the union guys in Nashville, because usually they will work off card and they're kind of invisible. However, there are times where people get a demo rate and then the union finds out about it because the placement lands. I mean, the worst case scenario is you get a placement in a major motion picture in a blockbuster. This is your
Right.
dream placement of a lifetime, and one of the players is sitting in the theater and goes, "Hey, that's me playing bass on there," and they go back to the union because they figure there's a pot of gold there, and they say, "Hey, I only got paid demo rate." There it is on the big screen, and then you've got the union breathing down your neck, and it's never a
Yeah.
good outcome.
And you probably know this, one of your taxi-friendly libraries, there's a questionnaire when you sign a track, and I don't know if they won't sign it. I think they won't sign it. If you say there were union musicians working on it, they won't
Yeah,
sign it.
right. Yeah, that's true for a lot of libraries, I
A lot of
think.
libraries never ask, so you have a great chance of getting away with it, but I don't recommend it. Like you said, if you get what you want, which is a major placement, all sorts of hell could break loose.
So you once said to me on the phone, not that long ago, actually, but you said it years ago and you reiterated it a few weeks ago when we were on the phone, that because you spend so much, which is not an exorbitant fee, but because you pay to have other people do it, the chances of you actually turning a profit on your stuff, at least in the short term, is not great. And you don't do it for the money. Like I said, you're a trust fund baby. I'm kidding again. But
I'm
money
a kept
doesn't.
man. My wife works hard.
There you go. Money isn't your main motivation. It's all about the personal satisfaction of having people out in the world hear what comes from inside of you.
Right.
And I completely get that and think it's cool. So I would imagine, though, over time that some of these will become profitable, because the farther you get away from the day that you wrote the check and paid for that $500 piece of music, so it makes you $131 this year, and next year it makes you $54, and next year it makes you $471. Eventually you'll recoup on it, but it's not going to be like, woohoo, I'm building a retirement fund.
Right. And it's hard to make a profit per song. The joke is I lose money on every song, but I make it up in volume. Um, But if I get a song on, and I've done many of these now, thanks to another taxi library, I've had many songs on Young and the Restless.
Right.
They tend to pay back the money because even like if I get a minute, like I've had like 2 minutes on Young and the Restless, I'll get a couple $100 just for that broadcast.
Right.
And then, although it doesn't rerun on network, it'll eventually go international and streaming, and money keeps trickling in. So some of those will pay back, but also, let's say I put 20 or 30 songs in a good library, even like some of the ones we talk about. Reality is not, some of them are never going to get placed. It's just the way our business is. Doesn't mean they're bad songs. It just mean
Nobody needed what you had.
needed that at that moment. So on the average, it's tough because you'll get some songs that really do well, and you'll get a bunch that never go anywhere. and they're usually not what you expect.
Everybody says that.
Yeah.
Explain that a little in more detail for our viewers.
I think being a great song and being the right song for the particular film and TV situation being looked for are two different things. A great song may never find a home in film and TV. I think the best song I ever wrote. It's been pitched a few times, but never placed. By far, I think it's the best song I ever wrote.
I hear that all the time from people. And another thing I hear all the time is simpler almost always wins the day. That even with instrumental cues, that people try so hard to show, look, I'm an accomplished composer. I know what I'm doing.
Right.
And you and I would listen to it and go, that's a beautiful piece of music. Boy, what a great composer you are. But a video editor working on a show looking for a piece of music isn't looking for the greatest composition. They're looking for something simple that just adds a vibe to the scene or enhances the emotion. They're not looking for something that's going to draw attention and make you go, wow, what a great composition.
Right.
Because you've forgotten about whatever's coming out of one of the Kardashians' mouths.
I was going to say, don't go there.
It's like when you have an office in Calabasas around the corner from the Kardashians, you tend to think of them a lot. I've got to say, over the last 3 years, I've seen a lot of Bentley SUVs, which I'm sure are like $350,000 and up. And they've always got the dark tinted windows, but I'll bet you if they rolled down their window, there's a Kardashian behind the wheel.
Well, there's a lot of them too. That's just a very quick aside, what you said about simple. A lot of your people will, your members know this, that we give alt mixes to libraries. We do a cue, and then we break it down. We may give just a bass and drum or just the drum and rhythm guitars. Many times those alt mixes, which have less, get placed.
Yeah.
And that's for the reason you said, less is more often.
80-20 rule. I would say that 80% of the income in aggregate earned by our members, which is a lot of money now in aggregate, probably comes from 20% of their work. And that stuff is probably the stripped down alt mixes that are just skinny. It's like bass, kick drum, and a rhythm guitar doing chinks or something.
Yeah.
How many songs with lyrics and vocals would you say you do in any given year?
Not enough. I'm going to say, that's another thing about me. I'm not very prolific. I'm going to say 6 to 8 songs a year, which really sucks. From a productivity point of view, it's not that great.
I'm kind of surprised it's that many, frankly. I thought you were going to say 2 or 3. I've never asked you that question before.
Years. I mean, maybe 5, but it's not, you hear about songwriters, they're just cranking out song after song. And I'm not one of those people.
Are you the guy that waits for the muse or sees something on TV and you go, "Oh, I could take that, that line of dialogue and that's a great idea for a song," and run down to the basement and bang out a guitar vocal in an hour? Or are you somebody that sees a brief from a library or a taxi listing and writes in response to that?
Yeah, I'm more than muse, but I've been really trying muse kind of guy. And the phrase thing, all it takes is hearing the phrase in conversation to get me going. Hey, I don't think anybody wrote a song with that title.
Yeah.
That helps me a lot. But I've been really struggling the last 2 or 3 years to say, no, I can't do that anymore. That's not the way, So trying to I took a recent class and I'm trying to get into more just writing to a groove and not waiting for some emotional thing to happen in my life. I was even talking about this with friends. I feel a little bit stuck right now, maybe because my life is, and this is terrible, I'm going to jinx myself, but my life is too calm and okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to jinx myself, but there's no emotional turmoil. So I am trying to get by that. But yeah, I've been a lot muse generated. I've also, when I'm stuck, I will write lyrics only and collaborate that way. And I've worked with some taxi members that way where I've given lyrics.
Have you had more success placing instrumental cues or more success placing songs? And I guess you could judge that success by which has grossed you the most income or which has been the greatest number of actual placements.
Okay, I write very few pure instrumentals for the sake of writing.
Right.
I've only got a handful. But the backing tracks tend to go in libraries and get placed. Sometimes I edit the backing tracks to make them more palatable as a cue. I shorten them, or I start a little later into it, or I look at it and see, well, what can I do to make this more interesting? So, but instrumentals definitely. Probably instrumentals make more money. In recent years, though, with placements on Young and the Restless, it may have changed a little bit because I've gotten a lot of nice royalties on that. And those are vocal songs.
Tell us about the process. How it differs when you use a Taxi member as a collaborator versus hiring an outside studio or another Taxi member on a pay for a gun for hire producer. So let's say that you reach out to Paul Otten and say, and I'm just pulling his name out of the air because I know you've worked with him, but say, hey, I've got an idea for a song. And he goes, yeah, I like it. Do you want to collaborate on it? So basically they do the production, sing the vocal, I would guess, in many, if not all cases. How do you determine which things you pay for and which things you do a 50-50 on?
Yeah, it gets confusing. I was writing this up when you sent me questions. It varies from, I pretty much got this song written, melody, lyrics, chords, verse, bridge, it's done. And then it's a pure work for hire. So I take my rough to that person and they record it.
Okay.
I have some collaborations where it's a collaboration in that I did the writing, they're doing the production, and that is the half and half split. They do their share, I did my share. So it's not. There are other situations where where it's a collaboration, but because I feel they've done so much more work on the heavy lifting with the production, I may give them a partial fee, but then still call it a co-write. So I have like all these different types of arrangements. The simplest is it's a pure collaboration.
50-50.
50-50, they're doing the production, I'm doing the writing. They may be throwing in some changes to the lyric or something here and there. And then there's a pure work for hire. It gets really hairy because I've got all these different types of arrangements floating out there.
Let's talk about the process a little bit. I'm guessing in most cases you give them a guitar vocal in the beginning. And you've mentioned that you give them references. Do you pick your references from very current stuff like the last year or more recent than that, even like what's on the charts today? Or do you ever, like I would because I'm old, pick references that seem modern to me, but they're actually from like 1998, but somehow they feel modern to me? How do you pick your references? Do your producers that you hire like ever say, yo, Case, this is not that contemporary, can we reference it to Billie Eilish because she's more contemporary? Do you go through any of that in the process?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to look for olives, I try to look for something reasonably contemporary, past 2000, better past 2010-ish. Sometimes with some people like a Paul, I could say, hey, who do you like for a reference for this? And he'll usually point me to a bunch of singer-songwriters that I'll go back and listen to. And yes, sometimes Taxi listings, that helps too. One thing about Taxi listings is just clicking on the Allahs. I hear so much music I would never know about.
Robin Frederick says that, and it flatters the hell out of me because nobody does a better job. I won't disclose her age. I'm not even sure I know what her age is, but Robin is not in college anymore. She's an adult, and for a full-fledged adult, she is so hip to whatever is contemporary out there. And I asked her recently, I think on a Taxi TV interview, and how do you stay on top of this? And she goes, the Taxi references. It's like, yay.
I keep meaning to write them down and going back because I want to get them on Spotify or download them because, I mean, just the other day I clicked on one. I'm like, wow, I need that song. I want to hear that in the car.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. I don't write to listings very often so I'm usually working with what I already have, although occasionally I'll say, wow, you know what, I could do that. Or I have something I started I could do. But Taxi listings, things I already know are fairly contemporary. The other tact I will take, because as we know in film, TV, music, the most important thing is be true to you can make your song like any era, just be true to it.
Hmm.
So if you're writing something and it sounds 80s dance pop, go all the way, because then it could be used in a scene that wants an 80s dance pop song.
Right.
So I have a bunch of songs I did produced by Scott Free, another Taxi member, where we wrote them as authentic 60s songs. They sound like they would be on the radio in 1965 or 1966. The Hollies, the Beatles, the Dave Clark Five, things like that. And a bunch of them were signed in good libraries.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Hollies don't get enough love today as much as they should. I mean, they were never ignored, and certainly those of us of our generation, and probably a generation or so after us, really appreciated the Hollies. But wow, just what a great body of work. Have you ever had a situation where you either, let's go with the paid gun, the hired gun producer, you hand them the project, and what they give back to you, even after a week of listening to it, it just doesn't grow on you, and you feel like, I just didn't get my money's worth, or I didn't get what I was after. How do you deal with that uncomfortable, awkward moment from a business perspective? Yeah, that from a business perspective.
I've been really lucky, and it's a credit to the taxi community in that I've almost never had that. I've had it rarely. I can't even think of a time where I was working with a taxi community person that happened. Um, I will sometimes go back and say, hey, we got to rework it. And most of the people I've worked with, from like Paul and I don't know, Keith, and just thinking of a bunch of people, will just say, okay, we'll change it. I think I had one recently from a studio that I really like, and they've done good work for me, and they just missed the mark completely. And it was really almost non-salvageable. We just negotiated a credit or something else in the future. But I think the thing is, and I really encourage you members, just pick good people and just understand what you have in this community, because there's just so much. You've got all these people that really know the business you're in. Don't be afraid to try to collaborate up.
Right.
When I think about the fact that I approached Paul Otten, I think he's a god as far as music, right? But I approached him and I ended up working with him.
Well, he is tall and handsome. I'll give him that.
I hate people that are good looking and that successful.
Right. And so nice.
And now he's so successful, I can't get any of his time, damn it.
I never hear from him anymore. And, I don't want to say I'm completely responsible for launching his career, because his talent is what launched him. But I invited Paul and Helen up to my suite at the Road Rally for a private. I invited some A&R people up and some film and TV people, and I had 7 taxi members all get up and play 2 songs up in the presidential suite during the Road Rally. And I did it more for them to meet each other for collaborations. And sure enough, Paul and Helen met. I knew they would. I didn't have to say a word, and it was like a musical attraction made in heaven, and that really
amazing together.
They were already, becoming a little successful on their own. Put them together, it was lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, it's really it's a compliment to you and the community how good it's gone. And if you ever want to realize the difference, whether you're doing it social media or the forum, go look at other music forums on the internet, any one of them. And look at the ridiculous level of immaturity and nuttiness of the people.
Why is that? Why? How do those people find those places, or why?
I don't know.
Why do they congregate there and not at Taxi? Because you're right. Our community is like really uplifting and helpful, and there's a brotherhood, sisterhood going on.
Yeah, but I'm not going to name the names of those forums. But there are places on the internet where you see what a lot of other musicians alike, and I'm just glad that I'm not trying to work with one of those people. Simple things like we are mature about it. We know that the split is even no matter what you do. One day I'll do more than you, one day you'll do more than me, but everything's an equal split, simple. And then I read what I read, or the way people bitch about libraries on other sites, and whatever.
It blows my mind. It's like those same people on those same forums will bash Taxi. Oh, those guys are a scam. They're a ripoff. I would never use them. I submitted stuff for half a year and never got a forward. Well, let's hear it. First of all, let's hear that music. Yeah. And second of all, it's just like, well, maybe your experience wasn't great, but you used the same screeners, same company, ostensibly submitting to the same listings. And yet there's this other group of people that have become in aggregate wildly successful. Individually, some people are wildly successful. A lot of people are somewhat to moderately successful, doing stuff that they didn't even know there was a music for film and TV industry before they joined
Right.
Taxi in most cases. And yet these people persist in bashing us. And I just don't get it. But, I think there might be, it's a maturity issue. It really is. And I don't want to be ageist about it because I was 23 once, a long time ago. Some of it is just they're young and they're not experienced. They haven't been out in the world enough to know that there is a better way. There's kind of an industry etiquette that you learn along the way, hopefully.
Right.
And
I've collaborated with people from Taxi from 19 years old to 70 years old.
yeah,
And in general, I can't think of a rarely a bad experience. I think we just generate a different type of person, or the type of people that hang around with Taxi seem to be more like that. So I feel very lucky because all the scenarios you describe, bad co-writing situations, bad productions, just haven't really had much of that. I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure it can happen.
yeah. I mean, it's always going to happen. You could have a great marriage and still have a fight with your spouse every now and then. But you got. You got to, what is your wife in the kitchen right now?
No,
You've
she's
got
right. Whatever it is, she's right.
you got to look at the whole. You do. You can't look at a moment. You got to look at the whole.
I just want to take a moment because in case we forget to say it, sometimes I'm on the forum and I see people are not getting their forwards and they're frustrated. And I'm always saying, reach out to others, whether it's pure collaboration, whether it's work for hire, whether it's a combination. If you're not getting somewhere, you don't have to go it solo. Maybe you'll go with solo later as you learn more, but seek out those people. You see who's getting forwards. You see who's getting placements. Maybe those people are approachable.
Yeah. Which leads me to my next topic, which is the road rally. I know that I don't even know what to call you, but you are the quintessential Taxi road rally appreciator. You've been to, I think you said 13 of them over the years, which is a pretty high number. Although I've been to 24, 25, but I'm obligated to be there. You're not, and I'm grateful that you do come. And you've written stuff on the Taxi forum about how to best make use of the road rally. Is it a fair statement to say that between the Taxi forum and the road rally, that almost your entire network has been built from those two things?
Oh, 99%.
And how would you compare the forum? So many people think that forums are kind of old school now. That's a very 90s to late 90s thing. And then social media came, I'm on Facebook, all day long. But I do have a Facebook account that's under an assumed name that's really just for my immediate family.
We all know that one.
No, you don't. It is just for my immediate family. It's literally my wife and daughters. And not even, like my best friends like Rob Shirelli doesn't even know about that account. Anyway, my point being that stuff that's on social media is very ephemeral. Whereas, in my opinion, the forum is like the Encyclopedia Britannica that always has new, more current, apropos information being posted every day, and it stays there, and the layers just keep getting deeper and deeper, and the contributors get deeper and broader. It's always growing and always getting better versus somebody making a comment on Facebook, for instance. Yeah, if you happen to catch it that day, but then you may not remember it and you go back to find it and it's just too much work. So I'm a huge fan of what the Taxi forum does. Am I nuts?
No, you're not nuts. I think there is a reality that people spend less time on forums now because we're on Facebook all day. I agree that the format of Facebook is difficult because things bubble down and you never see them again.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Facebook has the kind of, they should make a group page of some kind that could be more forum-like. I think they have post topics, but it just doesn't lend itself to the format. But I think it's more of a problem for you to get as many people on the forum as you used to because they're on social media and they don't really want to do another thing.
We actually, believe it or not, get bigger numbers of views now than we ever have. which surprises me. I mean, there was a day, I want to say in January of 2021, we had like 1,500 people on the forum at one moment in time. We had another rare day where we had like 6,000 people or something must have happened that caused a lot of people to go there for whatever reason. Maybe Google gave us extra love that day. But
it's got to be spam. I don't recognize the number.
It's probably my office telling you it's time to re-up your membership. But I'm a little shocked that almost any time I go on the forum, which is half a dozen times a week, I will see that there are typically in the neighborhood of 120 to 250 people on there. It used to be more like 60 or 70. So I think that there are a lot of lurkers, but not participants. The participants seems to be a core of people. You are one of those people. Oh gosh, I can't even think of their names, but yeah, there are a couple dozen people that are kind of the regulars. And I first of all, I'd like to publicly thank you for all the incredible information you've given out, mostly to new members. You know, you're kind of like the experienced voice and protector and uplifter of new members, which I know I appreciate, and I'm certain that new members do as well.
Thank you. I also was lucky. I think there was a period like when I started on the forum, some of your senior people, the people have been around a long time, like your Matt Hertz and your John Mazaz, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but there's a group. I'm drawing some blanks, but you know who these people are, Bob Meddy, and there's just all these people that I got to know early on,
right?
And that really helped a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we still have like Chuck Henry will still go on.
Yeah.
Dean Crepane will still go on. I mean, all these guys are probably over the six-figure mark as far as their annual income from film and TV placements.
They're also lifelong friends of mine. I mean, Dean. And, I mean, I talk to these people all the time, and if you ask me who my friends are in life, I mean, probably most of them are the people I've met in the music community.
Taxi members.
Taxi members, yeah.
Yeah.
The taxi music community.
So I'm always astonished and grateful that people who are at least, that are over that six-figure line, they are fully earning their income doing film and TV music, yet they still come back to the forum to help uplift newbies. And they're so patient with, we do get the occasional, like, I'm new to the forum, I've got 7 posts to my credit, and now I'm on there because I just got a return on something and I'm bashing Taxi. Those screeners don't know what they're doing after 29 years and countless successes, but they don't get my music and the screener must be out to get me. And you guys, I don't even have to come on there and defend the company or defend the screeners. You guys do it because of your vast amount of experience. And they still ignore you sometimes. It's like you've got no agenda. You've got no skin in the game other than I love this company because what it's done for me, and therefore I'm going to tell you the reality of it. And they still don't buy it. It's crazy to me, but
it's the way people are. But there's so many good people out there. See it all the time. I mean, good people. I have to say, was it Chuck Schlachter that once said, "We stand on the shoulders of giants," and he was referring to Matt Hurd.
Yeah.
Who, because Matt, if you remember, gave his time so freely and generously to anybody and everyone. And a lot of us picked up on that and started doing that. And it's one of the reasons, as you know, I'll teach at the rally. I prefer to teach courses more geared to beginners because I really feel I could be the most helpful. And I'm giving back to what people taught me when I didn't know shit.
Yeah, frankly, most people, given Matt Hertz kind of early success, Matt Hertz, just for those of you who are new and don't know, is one of our longest running, highest standing members. It's probably earned a 6-figure income doing mostly instrumental cues, some vocal stuff for about 20 years now. And he was really like Father Time. He was kind of the genesis. He was the single giant that other people stood on his shoulders. And that second generation was almost first generation, but then there's third, fourth, fifth generations. But it all goes down to the bottom of the pyramid. Matt Hurt is the guy. And yet he, up until the time when he's recently moved back about 2 years ago, moved back to Switzerland, and now he's not, I don't see him on the forum anymore, but at least a decade on the forum, you would think that that guy goes, screw these people. They're going to be, why should I make them my own competition? Why should I give up my free time? Because everybody knows time is money in this industry.
Right.
The more time you spend, the more music you make, the more music you make, the more placements you get, the more placements, the more income. But yet that guy would be on the forum several times a week, and he would spend an hour or two a night. You'd see some of his 300-word answers to stuff. And I go, I couldn't pay somebody to do it as well as
Right.
it. But all of you guys, I really appreciate the community of regular posters, you among them, and maybe now one of the foremost. Let's talk about the Road Rally for a minute. I know that you've been to a bunch of them, and I always hear from people like, I want to go, but I'm afraid I'll look like a little schlemiel. I'm not very experienced. People are going to look down their nose at me. I'm uncomfortable around people. I'm socially inept. I'm not a, hey, how about those Yankees kind of guy or gal. I'm just not that sociable. And then when I twist their arm, I beg, I plead, I cajole, I get them to finally go to a road rally. Inevitably, they come up to me that first night during registration and give me a hug and go, I'm so grateful you talked me into this. I love these people. I've never felt so at home.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is it that we have to beg people to go when there's so much evidence that it's like, I hate to be over the top about it, it's like nirvana for people like you.
Yeah, it's just, where else can you be with a couple of thousand other people just like you?
Who aren't competitive a-holes either.
Right, but still, we're all in the same business together. I think when you show up at that bar and you've got a badge hanging out, it says what your name is and where you're from, and people know, you do something in the music area, whether you're new or not. It's just such a conversation starter. You'll almost always say, "Hey, I see you're from blah blah blah. What do you do?" It's hard not to end up talking to people at the rally. And I do get the shyness. It can be, I'm sure it's a problem, but not much. I mean, it reminds me, I used to joke that when I was single, a costume party was the best because it.
Oh, yeah.
If I was single, I went to a costume party at a bar, you could not meet people, right? Because you had the icebreaker. And I feel like everything at Taxi is like, at the rally is like that. It's just a natural icebreaker.
It is. And I kind of feel maybe I'm taking too much credit on behalf of the company, but I think it changes lives beyond just the music, that people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s and have spent their entire life kind of being a wallflower because they're just not that comfortable going out and being sociable. They come to the road rally and they discover this part of themselves that, hey, I can be sociable if I'm with like-minded people. And it's really, I sit back there, I'm telling you, I go through emotions that literally only I can experience at the road rally, that as much as I love my staff and I'm close with them, even my own wife, who now works at the road rally, nobody experiences what I do. And for me, it's much more like being a proud parent. It's that same kind of feeling you get when you see your kid graduate high school or college. That's how I feel at the road rally, because it's not just about, oh, did Casey get another song placed with a new publisher? It's about, there's somebody who maybe has even sought counseling for their shyness or whatever. And I can think of one person in particular whose name I won't mention. He said to me, I'm scared to death. I just can't come. And I begged and I pleaded. And within an hour of getting there, he came up and hugged me and said, this is amazing. So yeah. I love that.
And there are stories about people just waiting on the registration line, just standing in that line.
Yeah.
Starting, if you're going to be online for a few hours, you're going to strike up conversations with the people next to you.
Yeah.
I remember early on, people would say the registration line could be the best part of your weekend because you'll make friends. I remember, I think Dave Walton would tell me that's how he met some of our friends.
Yeah.
Just on the line.
It's funny. 2 years ago, the last in-person road rally we had, the gentleman who now sells our sponsorships for us is the same guy that sells sponsorships for the ASCAP Expo. And he was also either publisher or vice publisher of Billboard magazine for like 20 years. He's been around the block. He and I've known each other for a very long time, but never really did any business together. And he came up to me his first full year of selling sponsorships for the road rally. And he walked up to me and kind of grabbed my shirt, pulled me into a doorway or a corner somewhere. And he said, I'm very concerned about the length of the line you have at registration. At the ASCAP Expo, people don't stand in line for more than 5 minutes. You've got people standing there for hours like it's a rock concert. And I said, we can get them in and out of there in like 5, 10, 15 minutes if we want to. But the best relationships are built the Thursday night. It's a thing. Remember when the line used to be so long, it snaked out into the underground parking at the hotel. And we did have some problems with the fire marshal and with people not wanting to breathe car exhaust. Oh, well.
My first year would wrap around in the lobby and we were jamming. I mean, I used to take my guitar to the rally and we were just hanging on one. We put bar stools down and we would be jamming and singing together.
Yeah, I love it. I really do. I wish I could go there invisibly because I don't like the fact that everywhere I go, people are saying, Michael, Michael. I just want to
They know you are, right?
Yeah, I'm on stage, so they know who I am. I want to be a fly on the wall, or I want to be a participant and experience like other people. I'll never have that luxury, but I'm a proud papa. Any suggestions on how people can best prepare to come to a road rally? Because a lot of people have that question. You've answered it a lot on the forum. What do they need to bring? Even down to clothing or business cards, all that kind of stuff.
I mean, clothing is incredibly casual. T-shirt, shorts, jeans. Clothing doesn't matter.
You and I are very representative at the moment.
Got my.
There you go.
Nice. So, business cards with the link to your music. I mean, we used to all bring CDs. We don't bother doing that anymore because nobody cares. And I think I made some notes once on the forum about it. Yeah, bring a pen and paper for classes. Yes, bring a few CDs because you might get a situation where an instructor might want to play something for the class.
Right.
Open mind. Don't expect to see or do everything. It's impossible. Although I think you scaled it down a little bit. The last live one, which was very helpful. It used to be that it was great, but you had a lot of things going on at once. And I think some members would get mesmerized by, oh my God, there's these 5 things going on at once. And what I would always tell members is, you know what, you're not going to get to everything.
Right. And we try and repeat the stuff that has the biggest draw. We will have like somebody like Jason Bloom do 2 seminars during our classes during the course of the weekend, just because we know that people will be drawn to him. But
or somebody like Dean, or there's just some things that are so amazing that you got to do that.
Yeah.
But what I always say about the rally, I guess, and I pick it up on the forum sometimes, is if you go there and your goal is, I'm going to get discovered, I'm going to get signed, this is going to make me famous, that's the people, you're going to fail.
Yep.
And you have to go because you want to learn and meet people. And whatever happens beyond that is gravy. And you'll hear disappointment from people. Their song didn't get played at the panel. I never met any A&R people. But to me, value the peers you meet at least as much as anybody else, probably the most. And I think the most to gain is the peers you meet. And everything, God, I can't even think of how many people I've worked with in one way or another because I met them at the rally.
And the peers ultimately are often kind of your, train ride into working with certain companies. If you collaborate with somebody that's already got an established relationship with a music soup or a music library owner, you get in by being connected with them. So yeah, you didn't walk up to them at the bar, hand them a CD, and they go, "You're freaking amazing. I want to sign you right here, right now." People have that fantasy. They don't know better. I see people. It's problematic picking the photos for the newsletter after the rally. There are a couple of people that will be at the edge of the stage holding out a CD in every single photo for every single panel. And we can't use a lot of photos because these 2 members would be in every single photo. So I actually had to call them in 2019 and say, do me a favor. Don't do it. Wait until the photographer goes away and then you can assault the people that just came off the panel.
And it's never even occurred to me to run up to the stage and hand a CD to anybody. Never, I've been doing this for a long, long time, never even occurred to me. The only thing I've ever waited for is to meet somebody that I already knew by email or from library, working as a library, like and then I finally wanted to say, hey, like a Brooke Ferry or Beth Wernick. I just wanted to, hey, I want to run up and meet you and say hi,
Right.
because we've been talking online for all these years, um, and just say hi, give a hug. But I never was interested in running up to hand CDs because I'm sure those get tossed. That person, when they pack their suitcase to go home, is going to toss them anyway.
Having been
Often.
I'm that person at other people's conventions when I'm on panels and stuff, and I've got to tell you that most of us would concur that you literally will throw them all on the bed and you look through to see the people that obviously have their act together. That doesn't necessarily mean the best photograph or the best packaging, but people who make sure that they've got their phone number, their email address, the song title, all that stuff together. You hate to throw their CD out because they got it right. So even though it's like just a green plastic case on the CD, but if the CD itself has their name, the song title, their phone number, and their email address, I won't throw those away. And I've had this discussion back in, like my friend Marshall Altman, who, was an A&R guy for 10, 15 years, whatever, major labels. There were a gaggle of us that went to dinner every night and had these discussions. And we all agreed that if there's any modicum of professionalism on the CD, right, you won't throw it out. If somebody gives you a CD that just says Joni's song and a phone number, that one's liable to get tossed. Some people just put a business card in the case without actually putting anything on the CD or on the case. The business card's going to fall out. Yeah.
I've been given this advice about CDs for years that, because I used to do a little placement company of my own. It's some small stuff. And, always it's got to be on the case. It's got to be on the CD. They're going to get separated. And
yeah,
another thing that always used to tweak me was don't put the track listing only on the CD itself.
Right, because you can't see it once it's in the
I
slot.
want to look at the track names while I'm listening. So, yeah, that's very true. And I used to get stuff. And even when I teach my class, I would often say, look, drop me a CD if you want. I promise I'll listen to at least one song. And I always do. But I will get those that I don't even know how to contact them afterwards, or I can't read the scribble of their email address.
Yeah.
Actually, years ago, I made a placement in my little placement company where I had to track down the person. I couldn't get their contact information based on what they put on the CD, and I actually figured out how to find them and to nail a placement.
I had a similar thing in the very first 6 months to a year of Taxi. The very first industry person to ever run a listing with Taxi is a guy named Craig Kalman, who is now chairman of the board of Atlantic Records. I knew him when he had an indie label that had just recently been picked up by Atlantic, and they considered him an A&R person for Atlantic, but he spent most of his time. I literally walked the streets of Midtown Manhattan with him with a shopping cart filled with boxes of 25 CDs, and he would go store to store sticking his label is called Big Beat Records, I think, and he would take those CDs and put them in the bins just for people to find and take. Just to get the word out, he would go to clubs like all the time trying to get his artists played. So Kalman was the first guy to run a listing. And probably 6 months to a year into Taxi, one day a cassette showed up and all it said was Mrs. Jones. That's all it said. I've still got the cassette like sitting 12 feet away from me right now. No phone number. I didn't know if Mrs. Jones was the name of the song or if it was the lady who did it. And it was 4 women sitting around a kitchen table playing a beat on the table. Remember, this is 1992, recording it right onto a boombox. And the song was about Mrs. Jones, who stole this lady's husband. And it was kind of a hip hop thing. The lady sounded African American. They had great voices. It's like the Supremes doing hip hop. There's something that just made the hair on my arm stand up. And I called Craig Kalman up in New York, played it over the phone for him, and he said, find them. I want to sign them. I could never, ever find them. No return address on the envelope it came in, no name or phone number on the cassette. Whoever did that song literally missed getting signed by one of the most influential executives in the industry because they didn't do the right stuff.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah. Basic stuff.
Yeah. So based on your many, many years as a taxi member, your broad network of taxi member friends, co-writers, collaborators, your depth of experience vis-a-vis the convention and the forums, what advice would you give to people who've seen our ads for years? And I'm not looking for a plug. I'm not pandering for that, but I figure who better than you to give the advice to people who like, yeah, taxi, it looks interesting. Yeah, and I hear people are successful, but I see these people online go, oh, they're a scam. They didn't forward my music to anybody. For people who have never been brave enough or had that moment where they decide to pull the trigger and join taxi, what advice would you give them?
Usually, I would definitely get on the email list and keep an eye on the listings first, because you may really not have the music or the capability of making the music that's marketable today.
Great advice.
And that's if it is, and many new members, and I go back that way, think you could shotgun something. Well, it sort of sounds like that artist, but it's nowhere near. So definitely, I would say get on the email list and join the forum. Learn, see what it's all about. Wait, I hear my wife coming in early. This is not good. She never gets home at 6:15. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Hi, I'm on my Zoom here, sweetie.
Hi.
Hi, say hi to Michael.
Hello, Mrs. Horowitz.
Michael, how are you?
I'm good. Nice to meet you in person finally.
She never heard the part where I said I don't care if I make money on the songs. We won't.
It's all right. It's going to be up on YouTube. She'll be able to watch
it.
Later.
It's a hobby. It's a hobby.
It is a hobby. So our accountant says.
Yeah. So
that's what our accountant said. I love it. I'm giving her own hour. I want to interview the wife.
If you interview her,
the victimized wife of a hardcore taxi member.
That's right. Yes.
That's me.
And I will say, give her credit. She has let me go, I think, twice now on our wedding anniversary to the rally.
Wow.
Yes, I have.
Yes.
This is awesome. There is no other CEO of any company that could have this conversation that I'm having right now with a longtime customer and his wife. It kind of sums up taxi. It really is like a family. Anyway, so you were talking about advice that they should check out listings to see what they realistically might have music for. That was very sound advice.
And read the form. Understand that you have to be able to make competitive music. That doesn't mean you can't start and you might not get there, but you have to have the goal of getting to that point where you can make something that works. And as I was saying earlier, maybe hit up people for collaboration. Maybe you have melodies and chords that if you work with somebody else, they could bring it more towards a contemporary sound. And that's what I've been very fortunate with.
I think that there's a big misconception out there amongst a lot of people. I will see people post online, don't join taxi until you've got a big catalog of professional music. And I think, no, that's kind of the opposite, because if you have a catalog of existing stuff, chances are it's not going to fit most of the listings and you're going to be square pegging into round holes. A lot of people will attempt that. And the other thing is, start out when you don't have that catalog, because the listings will inform the kind of music that's needed. You will meet people like you and other collaborators and friends. You will learn and grow into being a professional. That's really our job at Taxi, we're at the intersection of amateurs, people who are not getting paid for their music yet, taking them truly into the professional world. But our job is elevating them through education to the point where they are good enough. So, for all those people that think you have to wait, don't. You're actually doing yourself a disservice. Any other advice for people who've not joined yet?
No, just the collaboration, possible work for hire to start out. I know that's costly and not everybody can do that. It also could be in parallel to learning your way around your own home studio to make your own. Maybe you do want to hire out some, but don't expect that early on you're going to make back that money. It's part of your education and learning.
Any key advice for people who just joined Taxi, like in the last 30 days, and they're still kind of trying to figure it out? Any mistakes they should avoid? Any things they should do?
Probably just do a good job at understanding the reference tracks, because I think the successful people that get the forwards are doing a good job of A/B listening to reference tracks versus what they're doing. You're not copying, you're not stealing the copyright, but you want to be able to A/B listen and say, okay, yeah, I could see why this Matt Nathanson song and my song have enough similarity that they could play on a Spotify playlist together. And you shouldn't be shotgunning stuff that's so way out there, so far from what's being asked for, because that's just not going to get you anywhere.
I think sometimes people think my song is just so good that when they hear it, it won't matter what they're really looking for, what they need for this scene. And that's not true.
Remember in the early days, we thought people would re-record our song. It didn't matter. But in the film TV world, it's the recording. So now you can't do that. The other thing I don't think enough people take advantage of is the custom critique, which I think the $20.
So glad you brought that up.
$20 is really cheap for that.
Yeah.
Cheap's the wrong word. It's just very affordable. I mean, most professional critique services cost a lot more than that. Go for it. Like, maybe you want to. I've gotten some great ones from a few of your screeners. I started to even ask for a particular person who I liked a lot.
We actually have the best group of screeners right now that we've ever had in Taxi's history. I've got the best full-time staff and the best group of screeners we've ever had, and it's a joy to work here now. It really is, because there's so much talent under the roof, and I see the members benefiting from that. But I think that's a great suggestion to take advantage of the customs, because you can ask a question like, is the chorus big enough? Is the intro too long? Is this vocal the right type of singer for this kind of song? All that stuff gets answered, and they're right more often than they're wrong, I would venture to say.
I got to give a shout out to Robin too, because I did for the first time a session with her yesterday, because I just wasn't happy with the lyrics of my song, and I did a session, and it was just awesome working with her on that.
She's a savant. That woman never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah, she's amazing.
I think sometimes people think that I put her on a pedestal because I publish her books. I'm trying to just push her so that people buy the books. Couldn't be further from the truth. I actually published the books because I had already put her on a pedestal. She has such a gift for understanding what makes things work in a song. That it's a gift. Some people are just, it's a God-given gift. She's born with it. Whatever it is, she's got the gift. Well, as your therapist says to you, I'm sure, I'm kidding. Our time is up. Our time has come to an end.
Casey, you're not cured, but you're making progress.
There you go. I really, really appreciate taking the time to do this, and even more than that, I appreciate the fact that you've been a member for so long and have been kind of like the to some extent, I don't want to give you credit that might hurt somebody else's feeling, but a little bit of like the mayor of the populace, that you're the advocate of fellow members for a long time while understanding the company. You're a good liaison because you know the company is pure of heart and not evil, as many companies can be. And you're able to talk people off the ledge in the forum and probably at the rally to go, it's not the company. They're not out to get you. And that means a lot more to them coming from you than it would from me. So thank you for that. And
thank you. I mean, like I said, like the taxi community, these are my best friends in life. I've got lifelong friendships that just are amazing.
Well, I'm glad you do, and I'm sure it's for good reason. May they continue to grow and last for a very long time. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Casey Hurowitz.